Before you say anything, pause. Imagine this. You're not just entering a room. You're stepping into the final chapter of someone's story. A story that's still being written in expressions, in hand squeezes, in the rise and fall of shallow breaths. Every glance exchanged in that room is heavier. Every silence means something. In this sacred space, your words, however well-meaning, carry weight you might not fully understand unless you've sat where doctors sit, where nurses linger, or where loved ones quietly collapse in the hallway. You see, as a physician with over 20 years spent beside bedsides, from trauma wards to hospice homes, I've learned something critical. What you say in the face of dying can either ease a passage or burden it. And what you must never say isn't just about manners, it's about dignity. Take the phrase, "you'll be fine." It sounds gentle, reassuring, but to someone staring into their own mortality, it's a betrayal of truth. I've seen this time and again. Patients who've been told by well-meaning friends or relatives that things will be okay, while their labs scream otherwise, while their bodies quietly surrender. They nod, smile weakly, but inside a small part of them closes off. Why? Because that phrase makes them feel alone with the truth. Alone in a place where they desperately need to be seen. Telling someone they'll be fine isn't kindness, it's erasure. Instead, say, "I'm here. I want to listen. I want to understand how this feels for you." That's an invitation to be real. That's a lifeline. I once sat with a woman in her early 60s, Marianne. Her cancer had returned for the third time, this time with a vengeance. Her brother sitting beside her kept repeating, "You're a fighter. You've got this." She turned to me after he left and whispered, "I'm tired of fighting. I just want someone to ask if I'm scared." That broke me because I knew facing death shouldn't feel like a battle to perform strength. It should feel like being allowed to say, "I'm afraid," without judgment. That's why you never say, "You'll be fine." Then there's the phrase, "at least." The temptation to comfort with perspective is strong. We want to highlight the good, find the silver linings. At least you had a long life. At least you're not in pain. At least your kids are grown. But in doing so, we invalidate grief. We reduce a complex, sacred experience into a math problem of blessings versus suffering. I've watched patients flinch when someone says, "at least," because it pulls them away from their emotions. You cannot balance out pain. Pain just is. And the best gift you can give is to witness it without trying to shrink it. I treated a young man named Elias, 21, a rare cardiac condition. In his final weeks, a friend came and said, "At least you won't have to worry about adult life." That friend didn't mean harm, but the word stung. Elias told me later, "I would have given anything to worry about rent or parking tickets or heartbreak." No one wants their dreams traded in for shallow comfort. Instead of minimizing loss, allow it to breathe. Say, "It's okay to be angry. It's okay to be heartbroken. You're not there to fix it. You're there to honor it." Now let's talk about a phrase that pretends to offer wisdom. Everything happens for a reason. When someone is dying, they're grappling with chaos, with injustice, with the sharp unfairness of having life taken away, often before it feels finished. And saying everything happens for a reason feels like spiritual gaslighting. It wraps tragedy in a bow it never asked for. I've sat beside patients whose spouses told them, "God must have a plan." And I've seen the quiet anguish that follows. The truth is, sometimes things just hurt, deeply, without purpose. And acknowledging that is more healing than pretending to understand what no one truly does. One of my patients, Margaret, lost her husband to ALS after a brutal decline. She said the hardest part wasn't the disease, it was people telling her to look for the lesson. She didn't want a lesson. She wanted space to grieve without performance. Instead, say something honest. "I hate that this is happening to you. I'm here to walk with you through it." That creates room for authentic connection. It opens the door to comfort rooted in presence, not pretense. Another common phrase that seems harmless but is laced with denial. "Let's not talk about this right now." Often said with a nervous smile or a deflection into lighter topics. People do it because death is uncomfortable, but for the one facing it, pretending it isn't there can be worse than the reality itself. I've had patients say, "Why does no one want to talk about what's actually happening to me?" They feel like ghosts in their own stories. If they bring up their funeral plans, their fears about what comes next, or their regrets, they're met with silence or redirection. There was an elderly gentleman, Mr. Shaw, who tried for weeks to tell his son where he kept his important documents, how he wanted his memorial to be done. His son kept saying, "Let's not get morbid. You're not going anywhere yet." And when Mr. Shaw passed unexpectedly, that son was left without answers and with guilt. We owe the dying honesty, not brutal facts, but brave space. Say, "If you want to talk about that, I'm here to listen." Nothing's off limits. That's not giving up. That's loving them through the hardest truth. Then there's the attempted compliment that wounds. "You don't look sick." Meant to uplift, but often lands like a dismissal. I've watched patients shrink under those words, because when you're dying, looking well doesn't mean feeling well. And having your suffering erased by appearance is isolating. Instead, reflect back what you see with empathy. "You seem tired today. Can I sit with you a while?" Or, "You're carrying so much, and I see that." That tells them, "I believe your pain, even if I can't see it." In every hospital room, every hospice bed, every whispered late-night conversation, I've learned this. The most powerful thing you can do for someone who is dying is to stop trying to protect them from their own reality. Stop offering false hope. Offer your heart instead. Let them talk about their memories, their fears, their legacy. Let them rage. Let them cry. Let them laugh at something wildly inappropriate. Let them be human, not a patient, not a diagnosis, not an inspiration, but human. Because at the end, what stays isn't the perfect phrasing. It's presence. It's being willing to stay even when things get messy. It's holding their hand when they tremble. It's crying with them, not for them. It's saying, "You matter," right now, until the last breath. So when you sit with someone at the edge of life, don't bring platitudes. Bring yourself. Bring silence. Bring truth. Because those final conversations aren't about fixing. They're about freeing. Freeing someone to be fully seen, fully felt, fully remembered. And if you take one thing from this, let it be this. Never underestimate the power of simply showing up with honesty, humility, and love. That's the medicine they'll remember. That's the legacy you'll leave. And sometimes that's the closest thing we have to a cure.